This week, we're sending out huge thanks to Douglas Hopkins and Mark Smith, our newest silver members, and to Michael Gregerson. I think that's how you say it, Gregerson, who's our newest gold member. Hey, you guys, this episode is for you.
The Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, the spooky season arrives, and with it comes body horror, robot apocalypse, human animal cyborg hybrids, insect people stealing your soul, total existential nullification, or as we call it in the year 2025, Tuesday. The Major Spoilers podcast crew are your captains, returning to our home port, but you can't take the pop culture from us. We're feeling mighty sick, and the hand of a stranger might be around our throat, but at least we're not alone. We're getting closer to home, and we're on the game.
Welcome to issue 1146 of the Major Spoilers podcast, 1,146 issues. Show me a comic book that has gone that far. You can't, because I've never done that. So there. You know, it is the spooky season. A lot of the things that Matthew said in that intro is true, because in the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, we talked about some doo-doo horror. We talked about the apocalypse of comedy. We talked about animal cyborg hybrids at some point, I'm sure. You can listen in on that conversation, that very exclusive conversation, when you become like the people who we shouted out at the top of the show over at patreon.com/Major Spoilers. A couple of bucks a month, get you access to all that bonus stuff and more. Comic book show, let's talk about some comical books. And this week I want to talk about Terminator Metal #1 from Dynamite Entertainment. I'll save my commentary about the Terminator franchise for just a moment, but this is a series it's an anthology series, but I think there's 5 or 6 of them total in this. But in this first story, it tells the story about a man who is kind of a scientist guy who has found a downed T-800 and has reprogrammed it to not kill humans. And they are behind enemy lines, and they have to get the secret plans to the human base. And some things happen that kill some other humans. And there's people that don't trust the metal monster because it's going to kill us all. Because how do you know you programmed it not to kill? How do you know it's not going to revert its programming? All of these things. And in the end, I wouldn't say that the scorpion stung the frog. But it is kind of that story. And I'm not sure that this is really a story about a man and his robot trying to get across enemy lines. It depends on how you look at it. But I looked at it as a commentary on the parasocial relationship between man and AI. In this case, AI being the Terminator, and the man has really developed a parasocial relationship with this Terminator, to say, hey, we're buddies, we're friends, we're doing all these things together. You're going to look out for me. I'm going to look out for you. And the Terminator has no feelings, has no emotions, and it is not providing, and it does not provide that response back to the man. And it ends up hurting the man in the end. Spoiler alert. And so I really think that if you read this with this mindset of the parasocial relationship that we have right now with AI, the story becomes even more frightening than it should. So take it at that. I had a lot of fun with it in the end. The art by Lorenzo Ray is very interesting. I enjoyed it. I like that the T-800, that's the good guy, quote unquote, has this red slash across his face, so everybody knows he's not going to kill them. That is also kind of scary in itself. So Terminator Metal #1. It's out this week from Dynamite Entertainment. Really enjoyable. Go check it out. 4 slices of meatloaf out of 5. Go check that out. Matthew, also out this week from Marvel Comics, we have Spider-Girl #5. Now, this is not Spider-Gwen. This is like the Spider-Boy that everybody forgot about.
This is Okay, so Spider-Girl #5, written by Torunn GrØnbekk and art by Andre Risso, is the story of Maka Akana. If you remember the Spider-Boy that time forgot, she is a mutant with the power that Calvin Rankin had to mimic your powers. She accidentally stole the powers of Spider-Boy, kind of like Rogue did with Ms. Marvel years and years ago, and she is now a Spider-Girl, which is good because Spider-Boy's book either got canceled or the guy quit. But this issue opens with one of the more joyful moments in recent memory where Spider-Girl is teaming up with Spider-Man. And she's like, oh my God, I'm teaming up with Spider-Man. I'm teaming up with Spider-Man. Oh, it's so amazing. It turns out that the problem is a villain has kidnapped the villain Hijack and is using Hijack to kidnap actual military drones and attack New York. So throughout the issue, we have Spider-Girl, who's mimicking powers, keep picking up on Hijack, trying to find him while also trying to be a superhero. Not being very good at it, and Spider-Man picking up the slack. I really enjoy the art. The art is remarkable and weird, and it feels kind of like Jason Pearson in the 90s, but it's also very kind of hip today, Marvel Comics. And of course, having a young Hawaiian girl as a superhero, as our central character, is interesting. The thing that I feel kind of takes it apart is there's so much going on and so many questions of whose power does what and where and wait. And did they just blow up a whole bunch of innocent people? At the end of the issue, I was happy. Someone that I mentioned earlier in an earlier sentence appears and says, hey, y'all, Shug, you want to be an X-Man? And so Spider-Girl number 5 ends with an interesting hook into maybe a new era, but 3 slices of meatloaf for Spider-Girl number 5. It is interesting because I Rodrigo'd myself in that I read the solicitation for this book, but I didn't realize that it actually has nothing to do with what happens in the book. So that's fun. I do like the design. I like the art. I like the writing. I feel like it's aimed at an artist or at an audience younger than me, but that's also not a bad thing.
Yeah, very cool. I've not gotten into that series because I was like, oh, they did Spider-Boy, which was, for me, so-so. I thought it was okay, but, and so I was hesitant to get into Spider-Girl, but it sounds like it's an okay series.
It is. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
All right, very cool. Rodrigo, we are jumping ahead a week. Man, a week. Next week is the end of the month, everybody. October 29th, and the release of Biker Mice from Mars, part of the Nacelle Universe / Oni Press series.
Yes, Biker Mice from Mars, number 5. Matt Hodson, Jordi Trigona, I believe. So this whole arc is a prequel, like a pre-arc to the Biker Mice from Mars that we know in the series, right? Like they're rewriting them, taking them back to basics. You can tell because Moto has both of his eyes, and Vinny doesn't have his little like Kano eye head thing. So they haven't been maimed yet. Throttle does have his glasses, though. I don't think those are like therapeutic in any way. But in this issue, it all comes to a head. The Plutarchians are trying to mess up Mars, and in the process, maybe can cause Mars to be terraformed or blown up. And it kind of comes down to this character, Dr. Hockey, who is not a Martian, or I don't think she's a Martian unless there's like multiple different species on Mars. I think it's just mice on Mars. Who is, oh yeah, she's not from there. She's from a different world. She's trying to help them, but she may accidentally have doomed Mars as well. Also, RoboForce is here. This is very enjoyable. I like Biker Mice from Mars. We're getting ever closer to the Biker Mice from Mars we know, so I'm interested to see once that the concept is put together, where they take that, if they're going to tread different ground or whatever. I mean, they already are simply by expanding their backstory so much, right? I want to give it 3 slices of meatloaf. Art is very good, completely on model at all times. You know which mouse is which. It's good times. Don't read the solicitation or look at the cover. I mean, you have to look at the cover, but it's they don't look like that yet. But they know that people know what the biker mice from Mars look like, so they always on the cover look like they're like quote unquote final forms, right? But
Yeah.
they don't look like that yet. So just know that ahead of time.
All right, very cool. We do have links to all of these issues if you would like to pick them up for yourself. These are Amazon Comixology links, so that means a little bit comes back our way. I know some of you don't like Comixology since it's bought by Amazon like 15 years ago, but it is there if you want to help us out. Another way you could help us out is by simply sharing the love of the Major Spoilers podcast with all of your friends. Doesn't cost you anything to go out and spread the good word about what we're trying to do here in creating fun, informational comic book shows for you. Now, I got a question, because when the Terminator Metal popped up as a potential comic for me to read this week, it got me thinking, do I really, really, really want to read a Terminator comic book? Not because I don't think that the original Terminator, which I know a lot of people say T2, but the original Terminator is the best. Has the Terminator series either A, overstayed its welcome, or gone in a direction that fans don't want it to go? And should Terminator then maybe take a rest for a while? You know what I mean? It's like, with every subsequent Terminator movie that's come out, people have gotten less and less excited about the Terminator. And I wonder if you could give it a little bit of a gap where there's no movies, no comic books, no TV shows, if that would build the audience's excitement back up for it to come again. And the same way, I guess, could be said about the Fast and the Furious series. You know, has it overstayed its welcome? And so I just wonder what you guys think. Is the Terminator also that way? Maybe we've already had this discussion. I don't know, but I don't know.
We talked about Terminator before.
Yeah.
It's a time travel story. We can have it again and again because...
Well, this one's definitely not a time travel story. So
Terminator, I think, to my knowledge, there are 6 of them. I think there are 6. And everyone rewrites the timeline.
Yeah.
Terminator 2 rewrites the end of Terminator. Terminator 3 rewrites everything. And so by the time we get to the end of, I think it's Dark Fate. I can't remember. One of them has the 11th
Dark Fate is
Doctor,
the most recent. That's the 2019 one.
Dark Fate is the one that brings back Linda as like a 60-year-old. Yeah. And Linda's amazing. And then I think either Salvation or Genesis has the 11th Doctor. And then there's one where the main character doesn't know he is a Terminator. And I feel like that's just like, 8th grade, what kind of story. But I feel like each Terminator story, each movie, and I guess there was a television show too, with
television series. Yeah. With
what's her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jessica Firefly. I think that's her name.
Yep. That's her name.
But
Jessica Firefly, sure. T800.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think she's a T8004. But each movie kind of has its own reality to it. Even Dark Fate, which is explicitly a sequel to 2 without being a sequel to 3, 4, or 5, actually screws with continuity to the point where it can't actually be a sequel to the Terminator 2 that we saw. Yeah. And so for me, it's kind of like when you say, "Oh, Doctor Who," what's the canon? There is no canon. Doctor Who is in a constant state of paradox, and I feel like for me, Terminator, when it works individually in like individual chunks because the paradox is just like, oh yeah,
just go watch the one movie. Don't try to tie them together. Just enjoy them for what they are.
I like Dark Fate. I can live with, I think it's Salvation, but whichever one is directed by McG is just fun to watch, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
yeah, that's Salvation.
And it's also that point where I feel like in modern parlance, the companies are afraid of breaks. I feel like they're afraid that breaks are going to make their IP, for lack of a better word, no longer relevant.
Sure, they need to keep it hot.
Yep.
Well,
You got to have it in
so
the forefront.
in some of those, now this is not the case for Terminator, but it's certainly the case for Sony with Spider-Man, where they constantly have to have movies in production,
Yeah.
or they lose the rights to it. That's not the case with Terminator, because Terminator has been sold a couple of times. So, I mean, that's not the case there, or with Fast and the Furious, or with, I don't know what franchise we're on now that, I don't know, just seems to have overstayed its welcome. There may be a bunch of people out there screaming, Star Wars has overstayed its welcome. Make it go away for a while. I don't know, Rodrigo, what do you think about some of these that have maybe disappointed audiences again and again, and maybe it's time for it to go away for a bit?
Yeah, so we live in a weird moment in media history, and it's hard to tell because we're in it, right?
Yeah.
But it used to be that the prevailing wisdom was sequels don't perform. Like, don't do a sequel to a thing. It's going to make half as much money as the last. It's going to cost twice as much as the last one and make half as much money. And then, I don't know, like Batman Returns maybe swung it around or something. And then from then on, to the point where now it's like nothing will get greenlit unless it's somehow a spin-off or prequel or sequel to something else, right? And so, you have all of these, like, now as a fan, you kind of have to like like you have to, like, you yourself have to like gate that stuff. You have to be like, oh, a new Terminator thing is coming out. It doesn't look good. I'm not going to watch it precisely because I love the Terminator, right? Like, here's this thing. It looks interesting. Maybe I'll check it out, but I will like go in with like lowered expectations. It's, like nowadays is like it's like impossible to hope that, like, I hope a brand new franchise comes out that is interesting and cool. You just kind of have to be like, well, I loved Biker Mice from Mars as a kid, so okay, no shade to any of the nacelle stuff, but it's a symptom of the whole thing that's going on, right? It's like they have these properties, they want to keep them in the royal, like constantly somewhere in people's consciousness so that they don't lose that cachet.
Yeah.
And so it leads to a lot of the time mediocre stuff every once in a while to some really good stuff. Like it happens, right? Where all of a sudden there's like an alien movie that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought that
I thought
what the last one was,
yes, not
Romulus.
Resurrection, but Romulus. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed
Romulus.
Alien Earth.
Yep, Romulus was enjoyable. Right now I'm working on a video for my channel or whatever, that involves Arcane, right? Arcane comes from League of Legends. League of Legends is a mess, right? It's like purposefully so. It's like 10,000 characters, each with their own weird backstories. All of, like, none of them like really thoroughly fleshed out. But they went and they did Arcane, and at least the first season was like, let's tell this grounded story about like class divides, right? About like the rich and the poor and the haves and the have-nots. And it's been thoroughly lauded. It's the animation's excellent, so on and so forth, right? So every once in a while, you get a Spider-Verse or you get an Arcane, and every once in a while, just because there's like a gap, you get a new property that makes a splash, like K-pop Demon Hunters is now. But now that it's done that, expect K-pop Demon Hunters, once they recover from the stun that they really did not expect it to perform so well, expect it to go like into the churn and expect to see it, stuff
there are
come
a couple
out
more
for it.
things. There are a couple of more things already in the works. If you're a fan of that, I guess it goes to IMAX theaters in November for another big sing-along event. And some other stuff that's going on with that. So, yeah, I mean, I like seeing new things, unfortunately, and this is something that I was going to get into maybe in a bonus something somewhere, that, hey, guess what? Warner Brothers is for sale, and Zaslav is openly courting anybody to say, hey, if you've got some money and want to come and give it to us, we'll certainly consider you. Which at this point I should say, hey, patreon.com/major spoilers. Together, all of us, we could pool all of our monies and I could buy Warner Brothers and we could get rid of David Zaslav for good. All we need is like $45 billion. And I know that our listeners out there can reach deep, deep, deep into their pockets so we can get that $45 billion to buy Warner Brothers. But the problem is Paramount right now is not going to buy it, Paramount Skydance, whatever it is. The problem is if Paramount were to have purchased Warner Brothers, that is less competition for audiences, right? It means that instead of 25 movies a year, the Skydance, Warner Brothers, Paramount studios only have to maybe release 3 movies a year because who else is going to make movies? We own all the movie studios. And so that means that it's harder for new stuff to come out because nobody's taking a risk. Nobody's pushing the envelope. A lot of things that have been over time proven to be money makers or at least keeping it alive in audiences' minds, Fast and the Furious, Terminator, etc., Star Wars, that's the stuff we're going to make because that's the IPs that they own. That's the stuff that they feel safe with. Disney's going to be the same way with making more live action remakes of the live action remakes of the animated movie. And I think this overall is kind of a bad idea when new ideas are not allowed to be explored. But unfortunately, as you said, Rodrigo, cost of making movies keeps going up and the risk of not making any money also keeps going up, which means that people are less risk averse, or they are more risk averse to releasing new stuff for fear of losing their job or losing monies.
But importantly, I think with movies, it's not just like inflation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like unionization that's making movies cost more. Movies cost more because there's this idea that what sells are huge movies. So you need to make a movie that costs you $2 billion so you can make $30 billion, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, so,
and that's why you don't take risks.
They could dial that back, make movies that perform okay and still make some money back.
Yeah. That's what I've been saying for a long time. I think that the what the world needs now for the real healing of this world to happen, we need to bring back $50 million raunchy comedies like we had back in the 80s. And those things will make money hand over fist. I mean, again, I joke about the raunchy comedy part, but dial that back to a $50 million movie. Go out and tell a rom-com. Go out and tell a funny comedy with high school kids doing high school things like Superman and stuff.
Get a bunch of attractive nobodies who can act because those are
in a cabin in the woods.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you will, over time, make a lot of money that way. And I don't think we have, I mean, A24 was probably that studio, but it has kind of moved beyond that now with Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I think that you can have very successful movies that have a $24 to $50 million price range. They don't all have to be $100, $200, $300 million. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm starting to hear people, and we'll wrap this up here in just a moment. Years ago, we used to do a show called Zach on Film. You can still find the archives. They're out there. Go enjoy it. It's a great run. All of the movie podcasts that you listen to now pale in comparison to what Zach on Film once was. One of those episodes, Zach brought forth this conversation that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg had. So this was like 10 years ago. That movies were going to be this big like Broadway event where they were going to cost a lot of money. They were going to be a big spectacle. You were going to have to go there and it was going to have to be a big event like going to see a Broadway play. And at the time I kind of scoffed at that. I was like, that's a terrible idea. But now, 10 years later, I'm starting to hear more and more people echo that George Lucas Spielberg thing. We have to spend $300 million to make the movie a big spectacle that everybody wants to go and see because that's where movies have turned to. And if you want to make a $30 million movie, that's fine, but maybe go see a streamer for that. And I think that's the wrong attitude to take still. I think that's still the wrong attitude, even though more people are starting to embrace more money, or as the meme goes, more with Darth Child from Star Wars.
Darth Child.
Darth Child, that we all have one of those somewhere.
Yeah, I used to love classic Darth Child from...
Yeah. What was his name? You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, it's from the Star Wars.
Rilo Kiley.
Yes, Ben Skywalker. Okay, listen, I was kind of only joking a little bit about if we could all pool our monies together, we could buy Warner Brothers, but I'm only half joking. Listen, we do not have the big, deep pockets like these billionaires, like the Bruce Waynes of the world, like the Tony Starks of the world. For a lesser extent, for the Shields of the world. We don't have those kind of budgets. We don't have those kind of monies. So instead, we are relying on you, our superheroes, to keep us going week after week. So you can become a patron over at patreon.com/major spoilers. And for just $5 a month, you'll get our bonus show, early access to other cool perks that make you feel like you're part of the Major Spoilers team, and you will definitely be our hero. So head over to patreon.com/major spoilers, become a hero of the podcast today. And hey, if we reach $45 billion by next week, I will definitely put in a call to Warner Brothers to get David Zaslav out of there. You guys could make it happen. Man, wouldn't that be awesome if we just pooled our resources and made that? I feel like, what's his name from the old movies? Jimmy, no, what's his name?
Jimmy Stewart. You're going to.
No, not Jimmy Stewart. The other one, the short guy, Mickey Rooney. I feel like Mickey Rooney. Come on, kids. We can do this together. And yeah, we can do that.
Well,
come on, we're going to put on a play.
We'll buy it together. It'll be a co-op. We'll change the name to American Zoetrope, and nothing but success will follow.
Yes, nothing but success. And our first movie, Metropolis 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yes, we can make that happen. Speaking of making things happen, this week we are looking at a very strange book from Image Comics, written and illustrated by Ray Fawkes, called Intersect, Metamorph. Please, somebody tell me what this book is about.
Okay.
It's about 96 pages.
I was going to say it, and then I thought, no. So here's the thing. This is a nightmare rumination with body horror that is actually, I think, a metaphor for marriage, where you reshape your body and your soul and your mind, and that you are like combined with the person that you love into one mutant thing, and it's all drawn and painted like it's watercolor. I'm
glad you said that. I mean, it's really kind of like colored pencils and watercolor combined is the style. I'm glad you said that this is like horror, body horror. You know, the art is creepy. I mean, it's beautifully done, but I find it very scary. What was the Batman book, Arkham
Asylum?
I think that's
Dave
the one that had the
art.
Yeah, that's really creepy, scary art. I can't read that comic.
Painted stuff.
Yeah, I can't read that comic because it creeps me out so much that I just want to fling the book across the room every time I open it. And this is the same way. I'm reading through this and I'm just like, this is creeping me out. I want to throw this comic across the yard, because usually on Sundays when I sit down to read our trade, I do it outside as long as it's nice. And I just wanted to fling this across the yard because it was so disturbing. Rodrigo, did you also find this disturbing?
Yeah. Really, I just found it taxing.
Yes, that would be the
among other things. I mean, but it's a difficult read because there's nothing to get a hold of until you kind of figure out the book's like visual language. And once you figure that out, things start to solidify a little bit. And I think also on top of that, things are more amorphous early on, and as the book goes on, it gets a little bit more structured. So basically, my process for reading this book was, once I sort of developed the process, was I would read through the pages and look at what was happening, and usually in clumps of 2 to 5 pages, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get who's in the scene, what they're doing, where they're trying to go, what each of these characters is. Let me go back now 5 pages and read it sort of with that idea and see if I get it. And most of the time I did, but it was a taxing process for me.
Yeah. So for people that don't know what we're talking about, Intersect Metamorph is a tale that opens with two people who are occupying the same body or parts of their same bodies, a man and a woman, and they're kind of warping in and out or trying to assume control of the body. And just depending on what's going on in the situation, one will assume it, one won't. And they are accompanied by a comatose man, old man, who has a young boy emerging out of his back of his body. And the body throughout the issue, for as long as that person is in the story, is trying to turn their body around. So like at one point the person's like, hey, my hands won't turn that way because they haven't turned around yet. And then suddenly the hands, snap and turn around. And the kid is like, oh, now I can finally have use of my hands the right way. They go into a restaurant and there's a person who is merging with the grill. It's very Cronenberg kind of. I mean, it's not Cronenberg in its imagery. I mean, it is because it's creepy, scary. But the art by Ray Fawkes, as I said, with the colored pencils and watercolors is beautiful, but it is disturbing because that's the stuff that you are dealing with. And they are in Detroit, and the female side of the main character wants to get out of Detroit as far as they can. And the male side of the body is like, no, I want to go deeper. I want to find out what's causing this. I want to find out how we ended up the way we did. And like, I don't know if it's their pet dog or somebody's dog has merged with a human, and it's chasing them down and wants to kill them. And so it is just disturbing. It's violent. And then, I'm also thinking Matthew metaphor, but I'm not thinking marriage, because we start to reveal at certain parts of the trade, the art becomes very clear and almost becomes like a traditional comic book, where you see that these two are dating, or maybe they're in a marriage or whatever their relationship is. And the man is like, oh no, I love you so much. I don't know if I could ever live without you. And he ends up killing her and himself, and his body falls on top of her when the metamorphosis begins. And so that's how they merged, but we don't know what's causing people to merge with buildings and window panes and all this creepy horror stuff. And so that's kind of the backstory in that, where there's like some, it's an abusive relationship where they're trapped inside the same body. And that's disturbing in itself. I don't know. This was very creepy. That's all I can say. It's creepy.
Yeah. The codependence that kind of underlines it all, I feel like, is why I go relationship, why I go marriage, because they don't always like each other. They don't always want to be with each other, but they do love each other. They do care about each other. And even in this weird new world where, things are kind of merging into other things, they want to take care of each other. And there are a couple of moments in here, like when the dog arrives and the dog has his he's a roaring rampage of dog revenge. It kind of feels like this is a story about being consumed by what you love, or what the old "you are what you eat," or what you think about, what you care about becomes what you are. I feel like this is a story that I just picked it up and read it. That I always remember a line that Rodrigo said during the Void Saga, when he said that Orem probably thought that Sakaar just throwing himself and plugging his body into the magic was crazy, stupid, and suicidal. That's how I read comics. I just throw myself into this mess. And I read this book and, oh my God, I was depressed. And part of the reason for the depression was that overarching, sense of dread. We don't know what's happening. It's taking place in, a rotting Detroit, literally Detroit. And we have these characters trying to deal with one another and the ruins of their relationship and the violence that brought them here. But it's also something where there's a little bit of hope, but the hope is also tainted by the fact that they're terribly codependent and they're kind of bad for each other. And, when I look at the kid emerging from the old man, I'm like,
That's
is this?
It's just creepy.
But is that to me, it kind of represents this old guy maybe trying to recapture his youth, but also maybe the youth recapturing him. I don't know. The guy merging with the grill. It's something that this is. I can't remember the term for it. The last 20 minutes of Barton Fink is the same way. You get to a point where it's dream imagery, so you can't take it literally, and you can't
is this,
really,
is this real
continuity.
or is this? Yeah. So one way you can look at it when you find out what happens to the couple is you could look at it as, oh, this is the fever dream of either one or both of them as they're dying, right? So Barton Fink is kind of that same way. Is Barton Fink really insane? Is he walking out of this burning building or not? Same way with Jacob's Ladder. You could look at that as this horrifying death dream. Or it could just be that we're making this to be incredibly strange and weird, and you can find your own answer to this. I don't know, Rodrigo.
I don't know, Streaky. Yeah, I don't know. So
did you also want to throw this book across the yard?
Mostly at first because I was having a lot of trouble understanding it. I think that you can have have you guys seen Neon Genesis Evangelion? Any of it?
Yes, parts of it, yes.
Right. So Evangelion never ends in a satisfying way. It always kind of devolves into like dream, like fever dream nonsense. And then they're like, don't worry, we'll come out with a movie that explains everything. And then that movie is even trippier, right? So but up until then, Evangelion is like a thing that you can look at and say, like, that's a mech and that's a tree and that's a person, which this book did not have. It was both like visually very dreamlike and plot-wise very dreamlike. And so like I felt like I need something to stand on, right? And then like in the flashbacks, characters actually had like outlines to them. And I was like, okay, all right, maybe this, but the flashbacks are flashbacks. They're important, but not the actual book. Like I had a lot of trouble or a lot of problems getting through this. So by the end of it, I wasn't, I was like, I felt the challenge of like, okay, well, how do you interpret this? And for me, it was like, well, I don't want to. I just spend so much time just doing a surface level read of it that I don't want to sit down and spend more energy interpreting it. Like it's a very, to me, it was like a very difficult thing to approach. I think just because I just had a lot of problems, like kind of even paying attention to it, because it's so wispy and dreamlike. I felt my focus being pulled away from what was happening. And so when I would come back, like it would take like energy for me to like come back, be like, okay, what is happening? What's going on? What are the things that are actually happening? And then on top of that, what's all this imagery about? It was tough for me.
Yeah. So a friend of the show, Carl, made this his recommendation. We've got another Carl book coming up later in the year. Year's almost running out. Oh my gosh. But everybody, I ask every year, hey, people who are hanging out in the Discord, now's the time to make your recommendations known for next year. And I compile them. And, when I first read the solicitation of this, I was like, oh, this will be perfect for October. It sounds creepy. But I don't think I was prepared for just how out there this was. And so a couple of thoughts. The first thought is, yes, I think we have all been accustomed to, the 4-color panel of comic books, and that's how comic books should look. And occasionally, like the Batman Arkham Asylum book and others, creators get to just go crazy. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but they just get to go wild and just experiment and do things and tell things Certainly when we have looked in the past at Sean Phillips's son, who has illustrated books, and he kind of also has that painterly style that is really out there at times that makes you need to stop and look at stuff. And there are people that are telling stories that, I mean, had the Saga art gone a different way, we might be looking at Saga the same way, in that there's this bizarre story and the art is really weird, and I'm not sure what we're trying to say here, but I think that can be something sometimes very interesting when you just let a creator do something that they're expressing themselves with. And I think the Intersect is that. I think that's Ray Fawkes just totally expressing himself and just saying, I want to do this, and this is the result of that. And I think that there is something refreshing in comics when we don't have to be a 4-color panel, and we can be, a double page spread of whatever this red line and this blue line and this scary dog head is all together. There's something, like I said, refreshing about it. There's something energetic about it. But at the same time, it may not be for everybody. And it sounds like, Rodrigo, that this is just not a book for you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like, I wanted to like it. It just takes a lot of work for me to grok it, to just be like, okay, I know what is happening in this page, or generally I know what's happening, right? So yeah, but going in, I'm not turned off by books that look like this, or that are more impressionistic or expressionistic or whatever, right? It's like, I'm down. Just try to meet the book where it is. But yeah, just too much for me.
And I think that again, when I say, and again, that maybe I mean it derogatory when I say a 4-color panel, something simple, something easy to understand. Sometimes, and I'm not, this is just an idea, art, whatever form it takes, whether it's a painting on the wall or whether it's a comic book, sometimes art needs to make us think a little harder as we go through these things. And I, like you, Rodrigo, found myself thinking really hard about what is going on. And it wasn't until they got into the diner, which is, probably halfway through that first issue, that I was really like, oh, I get what's going on now. This isn't a metaphor for something else. This is like body horror stuff. And then I had to go into the next phase and the next phase and the next phase. And sometimes that thought process thing can be fun. But I don't know if I want to think about body horror as a metaphor for marriage or relationships or codependency or toxic relationships or whatever. So I'm also agreeing with Rodrigo that this was not a book that I enjoyed, but I really appreciate that it's out in the world. And, I did go and look to see what other people were saying about this, because I was like, I'm not sure I'm getting the point of this. And so I had to go and see what other people were talking about. And other people were kind of just talking about the same things we are. It's weird. It's bizarre. The art is fantastic and scary. It's horror. But I didn't really see anybody get to the deeper meaning of it. Trying to find some metamorph, some metaphor for what is going on. And so I don't know, maybe that's why there hasn't been a second series of this that has come out, or maybe this is the story that needs to be told, right? It feels like by the time you get to the end of the book, you've wrapped around back to the beginning of the book. So a lot of people really like it for its beauty and horror, but I think it's just that surface level stuff. And I think, and again, I don't want to speak for Carl, but I think Carl may have gone into this maybe hoping to discover a deeper meaning in this. And Matthew, maybe you found that deeper meaning.
I don't know that I found it, because I'm one of those people who I like the fact that art can be messy. I like the fact that art can be off-putting. Right. I like that Brechtian ideal of let's alienate the audience, but it's also something that when you do it, that you're going to have a very select group of people who are really going to attach themselves to something. And that's fine. And when you said this is a Carl suggestion, I went, oh yeah, it is. this is 100% a Carl suggestion. And I've known Carl for 30 odd years. We lived together several times. Carl is a wonderful human being. And this book has that combination of beauty and uncertainty and alienation and, a lot of things that I know are foundational to Carl and to me as well. But I also feel like when you approach a book like this and you're bringing yourself to it, I brought myself to it and I'm like, boy, that does look like Dave McKean. And then, I'm kind of going, okay, this is feeling like, and maybe I see everything as romance. Maybe I see everything as, relationshipy. That's a possibility too. But I feel like at the end of the day, having read this, I would not say that it was a chore, but I would say that it's kind of the comic book equivalent of our watching of Un Chien Andalou.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd do it again.
Yeah, probably not. I probably don't need to see an eyeball get cut out.
Right. But it's something that I'm glad that I experienced. I'm glad that I, immersed myself in this long enough to feel absolutely grossed out. And body horror is one of my triggers. So, the whole,
I don't know. Let me make
James
this clear.
Wan movie.
I'm not saying the Batman Arkham Asylum book is horrible art, nor am I saying that this is horrible art. I just have a reaction to this kind of art the same way. And again, this is very good art. Both of the instances that I'm talking about, the art is very, very good. The people are masters at what they do, better than me for sure. But if Matthew were to open a book and it was just page after page of pictures of wasps' nests, or I don't know what freaks Rodrigo out, to the point of having a visceral reaction.
White guys.
White people, yes, white people.
Hello.
If white people freak me out, we wouldn't be on episode. What are we on?
1146.
1146. Clearly, I'm inured.
Yes,
that's true.
But what freaks you out, Rodrigo? What is something that like turns on that horror switch for you? That gut reaction to fight or flight.
I don't know. There's probably like a little freaky guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And like, there's like some sort of like little freaky guy.
Mm-hmm.
That'll do it.
Like
It's
Ron Jeremy?
A leprechaun.
No, yeah, more like a leprechaun kind of thing,
leprechaun,
right? It's like famously my like that the boogeyman from the Ghostbusters was something that always freaked me out as a kid.
Yeah, okay. So imagine you open up the book and it's filled with the boogeyman, page after page. And that reaction of you just like suddenly getting terrified or wasp nests, or I have that same reaction when I look at this kind of art where it is something that triggers something in me that I need to get away from it.
Visceral
but
disgust.
It's not, but that again makes it sound like I don't like this art, because I do like it, because I did stop and have to look and say, okay, is this all watercolor, or what's the medium that they're doing this in? And I just found that beautiful, but it is that, I don't know. I used to freak out at pictures of snakes. Like pictures of snakes used to freak me out. And now I'm still freaked out by snakes, but a lot less so. And I think the same thing goes with this art.
Is there a line, like when you think back about something like Grass Kings?
Grass Kings is another one that we've talked about before that I was just like, this is starting to push into that boundary, but that's all watercolors. And it's not watercolors. I mean, I love watercolors. My grandmother was a watercolor painter in the latter half of her career. And it's not the medium. It's just there's something about, maybe it is the body horror aspect of it that's really weird. Because even in that Batman stuff, you look at the Joker as he is painted in that, and that is like freaky. And that I get that same reaction in that. And so, I've talked before about The Thing, now one of my favorite movies of all time. But when that first came out, I couldn't look at it because it would terrify me. Yeah. And I think if I had read Intersect Metamorph as a 10-year-old kid, or whatever year The Thing came out, I would have the exact same reaction. I cannot look at that. Now I can watch The Thing and I can say, oh, look at that head splitting apart and those legs crawling out. and I can look at the Intersect the same way, but still somewhere in the back of my head or my gut there is this thing of run. This is scary.
The only really commensurate experience for me to reading this book was when I was maybe 13 or 14. I watched, read, and it absorbed a lot of things that I shouldn't. And one of them was a film.
Tetsuo the Iron Man.
No, called I love Tetsuo the Iron Man. No, Repulsion. I think it's a Roman Polanski, but it doesn't necessarily have similar visuals, but it has a similar kind of feeling and that nightmarish tone and that expectation that these things are happening and you can't stop them. And it is like a dream. I joke about the do not go down the stairs if you know you're in a dream. If you know you're asleep, avoid the stairs. But sometimes my brain avoids the stairs and has me in the basement at the beginning. And so I have to outsmart my own brain when I'm sleeping. And it is very much like that. It's very much a kind of a dream state of this is just sort of happening. This is happening to me as a reader. Yeah. And I enjoyed it, but I also didn't. And I'm like,
yeah, I mean, I would not recommend this book. Just me. And it sounds like Rodrigo probably is a skip too. Matthew, is it a skip or a borrow for you?
Borrow. I would recommend it tentatively to people that I know can deal with the vibe. So, like, for instance, before you said, "Hey, this is a Carl thing," I was like, "Oh, you know who I think might like this?" I'm just like, okay.
Carl. Yeah,
but that's kind of thing. I would recommend it tentatively to people who I feel like have the mindset to really, really just kind of dive into this. There's a guy I used to know in college. His name was Jay, and I think now he's just a cool old dude in his 50s. But when he was 19, this would have been entirely his jam. So, I mean,
yeah. Rodrigo, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Is this a borrow or a skip for you?
For me, it's a skip. I just like even the things that I think even like the revolting things or the discomfort of it sometimes was lost on me because I was having so much trouble with it, right? It's like I go back and be like, oh, that guy, okay, so that guy was attached to the grill. I did not feel the thing that I was supposed to feel when I was supposed to be feeling it, right? So for me, it's a pass. I need maybe just slightly more structure. Just give me some gutters here and there, and I would probably be a little bit more on board.
So you guys we've mentioned the word a couple of times, vibe. And so we have things like vibe movies. I was trying to look it up really quick. My favorite vibe thing that has come out in the recent years is Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. And it's the episode that is all orange, where they are sitting around a pit lounge and they're getting high and talking about the universe and everything. And then they go and see this thing from beyond that, basically destroys them all. And it's this really bizarre vibe movie. It's there to create a vibe. And that director of that element has also done a full-length motion picture that I was trying to find really quickly, but I can't. And it also is that same way. It is very much a vibe movie. And I think this comic is also very much a vibe comic. It is there to evoke a vibe. It is there to evoke a reaction. Again, we are talking about this. We don't know what the intent of the author was, but too late. It's already out in the world, so now we can put our own thoughts on it. But it's definitely a vibe comic. And if you're into just vibe stuff, maybe people would enjoy it, but I just did not. So anyway, thank you, Carl, for recommending it, because again, I do think that we all need to get out of our comfort zones every once in a while and read something different and something new. Next week on the show, though, we're going to get back into something old. including the Creepy Archives Volume 11 coming out in November from Dark Horse Comics. So we're actually reviewing this before it hits the stands because it's our horror spooky month. And why? Because we know that you love comics and we do too. If you want to help us out, patreon.com/major spoilers. And we will talk with you next time. Take care.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm stark raving rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the hard cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Yeah, yeah, yeah! What a major spoiler! Whoa, 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 whoa! What a major spoiler!
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.